Hi, how you doing? So, yeah, you read the title, you know what's happening. Every single My Little Pony episode ranked. Well, kinda. You see, I've wanted to make a video like this for a while. I've seen many other great videos about the same thing from other creators. Each one is original because everyone has their different opinions, and most, if not all of these videos, they did all the episodes in one video. Me, however, I'm quite a fan of my weekly upload schedule, and since My Little Pony has 220 plus episodes, I wouldn't want to keep you guys waiting for absolutely ages, so I've decided to rank each season as a different part. So this video, part 1, will be season 1, and then once I've got season 9, I'll release a video which is all of them edited together and some extra bits so you're not watching exactly the same video. And then the title will be true. I'm not going to rank these on a tier list, rather as we go along I'll place them in ranks. So of course for episode 1 it'll be number 1, because there's only be one spot, but by episode 222 you'll be able to see a numbered rank for each episode. If you're confused, hopefully you'll understand once I start ranking them. One more thing. Before the video properly starts, remember this is all my subjective opinion and I can guarantee that it won't be the same as yours. So with that said, let's embark on this journey through My Little Pony.
I used to wonder what friendship could be, until you all shared its magic with me.
Friendship is Magic Part 1. I mean, you can't go wrong with it, can you? It's the first episode most people saw and therefore left a big enough impact on people to make them come back to the show over and over again even 10 years later. It's a two-parter, so in this part, the first part, we get introduced basically to all the ponies that will become our main characters for 9 years to come. We learn a little bit about each of them. Applejack is a hard-working pony who cares about her family and apples. Rainbow Dash is a confident Pegasus who aspires to be a member of the Wonderbolts at some point. Basically, the My Little Pony version of the Blue Angels or Red Arrows. Rarity cares a lot about fashion and appearance and class. Fluttershy cares about animals and is, as the name suggests, shy. And finally, Pinkie Pie likes parties and fun. Can't forget about Twilight Sparkle, the main pony we follow throughout the episode, who is in Ponyville under orders of Princess Celestia, who she is the star pupil of, to check on preparations for the Summer Sun celebration and
Make some friends! Aww.
Twilight thinks the latter is a waste of time and would much rather go into the library and read about Nightmare Moon, who 1,000 years ago was banished to the moon and had a prophecy that
On the longest day of the 1000th year, the stars will aid in her escape, and she will bring about nighttime eternal.
Twilight tries to warn Celestia about this, but Celestia tells her that it's just an old mare's tale and to relax. And at the very end of the episode, Nightmare Moon indeed returns and we're left on a cliffhanger till part 2. As I mentioned before, this episode does a great job with the 20 minutes it's got of setting up the main protagonist characters, the problem and the world quickly, in equal amount of detail. It doesn't go too in depth in one of them in specific, making for an easy watch. For now, Friendship is Magic is going to have to go in the number 1 spot, but I mean that's simply because it's the only one I've ranked so far. Friendship is Magic Part 2 picks up exactly where Part 1 left us, and we see Nightmare Moon deliver an ominous speech before turning into a blue cloud of smoke and flying into the ever-free forest. Twilight, followed by the rest of the main 6, chase after her, and it's here that we properly get introduced in more detail to each character, as they each commit an act that shows what element of harmony they are. Pinkie Pie laughs at the scary trees, therefore is the element of laughter. Fluttershy helps an injured Manticore, therefore is the element of kindness. Applejack promises Twilight in a moment of peril that if she lets go she'll be safe, therefore is the element of honesty. Rarity cuts her tail shorter to help the sea serpent whose moustache was cut off, therefore is the element of generosity. And Rainbow Dash stays loyal to her friends instead of joining the Shadow Bolts, therefore is the element of loyalty. And finally, Twilight is the element of magic as she uses magic to get out the elements and activate. This episode is basically the first one but more action. It ends with the main 6 using the elements of harmony to defeat Nightmare Moon, revealing her to be Princess Luna, Celestia's sister. This is another great episode that continues setting up the main 6 protagonists, helping the audience get more invested in each. We also get the first of many villain confrontations that will become a regular occurrence for finals and premieres. It is also where the main 6 actually become friends after bonding over their experiences. In the first part, Twilight was just meeting them for the first time and found them all annoying, as she simply wasn't open to the idea of friendship. But in this part, we see how she begins to bond with each one, and in the end, however corny it is, it's the power of friendship that helps them defeat Nightmare Moon. Friendship is Magic Part 2 is going to take Part 1's number 1 spot, putting it at number 2, as I believe, though number 1 is a great intro episode, and I believe most people agree here, it's basically just a setup for this episode. The Ticketmaster is our first normal episode, where there isn't an overarching goal, there is a self-contained story, which is how nearly all the episodes are, except premieres and finales. So here we get to see a normal dynamic between the main 6 friends that we follow throughout the series, and how they interact. The story of this one is, Twilight gets 2 tickets to the Grand Galloping Gala from Princess Celestia. The gala is a very big event in Canterlot. Since she only has 2 tickets, she can go with her and 1 friend. But there are 5 friends that want to go, all for reasons specific to their pre-established interests and character traits from episodes 1 and 2. Throughout the episode, Twilight gets more and more stressed about which friends she wants to take with her, and while doing it, eats a daffodil and daisy sandwich.
I would love a daffodil and daisy sandwich.
In the end, she sends both tickets back to Princess Celestia since she can't decide which friend to take and doesn't want to upset any of them. She sends this to Celestia via Spike, who I haven't actually properly mentioned yet. Spike's a dragon who is friends with Twilight in the main 6. He's introduced as just being with Twilight, and the origin of how he and Twilight first met is revealed in an episode later in season 1. After Celestia receives the tickets back, she sends 6 more to Twilight so all her friends can go with her. Now, as the first normal format episode, the Ticketmaster doesn't do a bad job of introducing how the show is going to work and what we can expect from each episode, but doesn't have any exceptionally memorable moments or themes. The Ticketmaster is going in 3rd place below Friendship is Magic Part 1, so for now, yes, it is in last place, but that'll probably change soon. Applebuck Season is the first episode that centers around one character and builds on their personality and element. In this case, Applejack and her hard-working, never-give-up attitude. Since her brother Big Macintosh is injured, she decides she's going to harvest the entire Sweet Apple Acres orchard by herself. This naturally causes her to get very tired, and this tiredness causes all kinds of problems when trying to help with friends around Ponyville. For instance, Rainbow Dash asks for Applejack's help with a catapult stunt, but Applejack first completely misses the landing pad.
Ready? 1, 2, 3!
And after a few attempts, launches Dashy without her being ready.
Here I go!
Due to being tired and unable to pay attention. Another example is when Pinkie Pie asks for help baking cupcakes, and AJ mishears the ingredients and ends up putting a completely wrong concoction of ingredients in the cupcakes, causing many ponies that tried the cupcakes to become sick. Applejack tries helping other friends as well, but her tiredness from overworking in the orchard causes her to mess up, and each time she does, Twilight goes to her and asks her if she wants help, but Applejack refuses. Until finally, she believes she's finished. Until she realizes there's an entire other field to bug, and then faints. When she wakes up, she accepts her friend's help and the harvest goes much quicker and easier. I mean, Twilight literally harvests an entire field with magic. That's definitely not overpowered or anything. In the end, Applejack learns that it's okay to ask for help from your friends if you need it. This is a really good Applejack episode, as it shows her hardworking and down-to-earth personality in a good light, wanting to help her family and friends even when she's already tired, but also shows how it has downsides, as her not accepting help and wanting to do it on her own. It shows that when Applejack sets her mind to something, she will do whatever she can to accomplish it. Overall, this is a great Applejack episode and will be going in the number 3 spot, above the Ticketmaster but below Friendship is Magic Part 1. Griffon the Brush Off is another great episode. We have yet to have an even somewhat disappointing one actually. It starts with Pinkie chasing Rainbow Dash for an unknown reason, until Dashy gives up running and it turns out Pinkie just wanted to help with a prank. Which makes Dashy realise that her and Pinkie have more in common than she thought, as she also enjoys pranking ponies. They go around pranking ponies all over Ponyville until one day, Pinkie goes over to Dashy's house excited for a new day of pranking, but is turned away because Rainbow Dash is hanging out with her old friend Gilda the Griffin from flight school. Gilda is revealed to be quite a nasty character as she continually stops Pinkie's attempts at hanging out with her and Dashy, and even makes Fluttershy cry, so it's very satisfying when she gets pranked a bunch of times at her welcoming party. Gilda immediately assumes it's Pinkie Pie, as does the audience, but it's revealed that it's actually Rainbow Dash, who then firsthand sees how mean Gilda is and basically tells her to get out. So yeah, again, a very good episode, teaching that classic friendship lesson of don't leave anyone out. It also builds more on Pinkie and Dashy's character, showing how Dashy stands up for people who bully her friends, and how Pinkie is always positive, wanting to give Gilda, someone who has only been hostile to her, a party to try and cheer her up. Although it's one of the first few episodes, Pinkie Dash is actually quite an uncommon duo during the rest of the show. Of course, there are other Pinkie Dash episodes, but it's much less common than, say, Apple Dash or Flutter Dash. Another solid episode. Griffon the Brush Off is going to go in 4th place, above Ticketmaster but below Applebuck season. Boast Busters introduces a fan favourite character, Trixie Lulamoon, who is introduced as a boastful and confident unicorn who sets up a stage in Ponyville to perform magical acts. Trixie invites people onto stage to try and compete with her and ends up embarrassing all of the main 6 apart from Twilight. She also claims to have taken down an Ursa Major, a huge magical beast. Everyone tells Twilight to go onto the stage to show Trixie up, but she doesn't want to be a show-off and worries her friends will think of her the same way as Trixie. The climax of the episode is where Snips and Snails lead an Ursa Minor to Ponyville to prove Trixie can deal with it. Obviously she can't, and it ends up being Twilight who deals with it, getting it back safely to its cave, and causing minimal damage. The episode is obviously good because it introduces a good character, in Trixie, but the actual message of the story is a little weird. Trixie was just showing off because she's a show pony. The more people that are interested in her act, the more money she gets. It's literally her job. It may look good for our main ponies at first, being opposed to a visitor who's not from their town boasting and one-upping everyone, but when you actually think about it, it doesn't make that much sense. It's like if you got mad at a circus performer or a musician for showing off. No, it's literally their job, but whatever. Ignoring this, it's a solid episode, and we'll go above Ticketmaster but below Griffon the Brush Off in 5th place. Dragonshy is a great episode, possibly the best one yet. There is mysterious smoke covering the sky in Equestria, and it's revealed to be a massive dragon at the top of the mountain. The main 6 have to go up the mountain to tell it to move, or the sun will be blocked out and bad things will happen. They have this cool suit up scene before embarking on their journey. And Fluttershy is very nervous about going as she is scared of dragons and many other things. And along the journey, Fluttershy encounters a lot of things that she's scared of doing and tries to overcome them. Not very successfully, until ultimately they get to the dragon's cave and every other member of the main 6 tries with different approach styles to get the dragon to move. But they all fail until it's just Fluttershy left, who finally becomes assertive and stands up to the dragon, being the pony to get it to move in the end. This is a really fun episode to watch that actually shows character growth really well. Fluttershy starting off not even wanting to leave her house and in the end being the one to vanquish the dragon. I also may be slightly biased because Fluttershy is one of my favourite ponies. I mean, this will be biased, that's what makes it my ranking, but anyway. Dragonshy also, while only being a 20-minute long episode, does a great job of making itself feel longer, not in a bad way. It feels like once they get to the cave at the end, they've actually been on a long journey, despite the episode only having gone on for 17 minutes at that point, which adds to how enjoyable the episode is to watch. With all that said, Dragonshy is going to be my new #1 spot episode. As although yes, Friendship is Magic Part 2 did have more action, Dragonshy shows character growth on a journey, and I personally find that very fun to watch. Look Before You Sleep is a departure from the more big adventurous and a more contained, almost cozy kind of story. Basically, Applejack and Rarity are pruning trees but disagree on methods, as Rarity wants it to look nice while Applejack wants it done practically. Their arguing is interrupted by a rainstorm and Twilight invites them both to sleep over at her house as it's too dangerous to try and get back to their own houses. Throughout the rest of the episode, Twilight is very excited about having her first slumber party and is trying to do everything right by the book, while AJ and Rarity are arguing about literally everything. This eventually leads to a tree crashing into the library. AJ and Rarity again blame each other for this until they come to the conclusion that bickering is only making a bad situation worse, and accept that the only way they can remedy the situation is by working together to remove the tree. This episode is obviously not as high octane as Friendship is Magic Part 2, or as character building as Dragonshy, but I still really like this episode. As I mentioned before, it has a cozy atmosphere, and it's really funny watching how Applejack and Rarity bicker throughout the episode, while Twilight is in her own world with a Slumber 101 instruction book. It's funny as well that Applejack and Rarity's first episode together is like this, because later on in the show they end up becoming quite a common and dynamic duo. Look Before You Sleep is gonna go in 6th place, above Boast Busters but below Griffon the Brush Off. Bridle Gossip is the first kinda controversial episode, as it covers a controversial topic, racism, in a way targeted towards kids, which is guaranteed to offend some people. The episode focuses around how everyone in Ponyville is afraid of Zecora the zebra, because they've never seen a zebra before and prejudge her. While yes, Zecora does use stereotypes that could be considered offensive, for instance her having an African-esque accent. It isn't a particular accent, but I feel like most people would instantly flag it as African-esque. Twilight and Applebloom, Applejack's little sister, don't understand the other pony's fear of Zecora, and Twilight even identifies her as a zebra. Her friends don't want to hear any of it, and are convinced she's some kind of evil enchantress though.
She's an evil enchantress. She does evil dances. And if you look deep in her eyes, she'll put you in trances. Then what will she do? She'll mix up an evil brew. Then she'll gobble you up in a big tasty stew. So, watch out!
Applebloom sips out while this is happening and follows Zecora into the Everfree Forest. Applejack and the rest of the main six follow her, but get warned to beware of leaves of blue before going deeper into the forest. The next day, the main six wake up with random things wrong. Twilight's horn is floppy, Rarity has long hair, Rainbow Dash is hopelessly clumsy, Applejack is tiny, Pinkie Pie's tongue is massive, and Fluttershy's voice is really deep.
I don't want to talk about it.
They instantly assume that Zecora cursed them, until they confront Zecora and realise she meant no harm and was actually just warning them about the blue flowers they were standing in, which are called poison joke. They inflict joke ailments on whoever touches them. Zecora makes the remedy for it and they all end up being cured of all their ailments. And also show all the pony folk in town that Zecora is not to be feared. So yeah, I can see how this could be considered offensive, as it's taking a very complicated issue of racism and simplifying it into a form that kids can understand, but it's still very clear on what's right and wrong, and kids watching this should come out of it with the right idea. For me personally, I quite enjoy this episode, as all the ailments all the main six get and how they deal with them is always funny to watch. I'm only putting Bridle Gossip in 6th place, above Look Before You Sleep, but below Griffon the Brush Off. Swarm of the Century is a personal favourite of mine. It's got a very simple story. An invasive species of bug called parasprites get into Ponyville and they start multiplying, eating all the food. This is a massive problem because Princess Celestia is due to visit, so Twilight, in an attempt to stop them from eating everything, casts a spell which makes them not want to eat food. But then they just eat everything else, including the words from books. Applejack, with the help of the rest of the main six minus Pinkie Pie, try herding them and it almost works, until it doesn't. So where was Pinkie Pie during all this? Well, she was gathering instruments from around Ponyville, and had asked her friends for help, but naturally since she didn't actually explain what she was doing, they didn't want to help her. The only way to get rid of the parasprites, it turns out, is to lead them away with an entire band of instruments, Pied Piper style. So that's exactly what Pinkie does, and it's this precise scene that makes me like this episode so much. The joyous music playing with Pinkie Pie looking completely serious and slightly fed up, and a massive line of parasprites behind it will always be randomly hilarious to me. At the end of the day, Swarm of the Century has a very simple message of not taking someone seriously because of prejudgment. The main six don't take time to inquire what Pinkie is doing as they assume it's normal random Pinkie. While this is objectively just a decent episode, I'm probably going to rank it higher than it deserves, but yeah, as I said, this ranking is just my personal subjective opinion, and with that said, I'm going to put Swarm of the Century in 5th place, above Griffon the Brush Off but below Applebuck season. Winter Wrap-Up is one of those episodes that's tied to such a memorable song that from memory, all I can think of when it comes to this episode is that song.
Winter wrap up, let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap up, 'cause tomorrow spring is here. Winter wrap up, 'cause tomorrow spring is here.
Which ain't a bad thing. Winter Wrap-Up is a great song, possibly the first proper musical number that we get in the show, so naturally it's a classic and bumps this episode up a bit. But what's the actual episode like? The gist of the story is Twilight is having trouble finding her place in the Ponyville Winter Wrap-Up, in which, to honour the fact that Ponyville was founded by Earth ponies, no magic is used, which Twilight, a unicorn from Canterlot, is naturally going to struggle with a bit. Everyone in Ponyville gets split into 3 teams: weather, animals, and plants, except Twilight and Spike, who go around to all their friends in turn to try and help them, but end up being pretty hopeless at everything they try, until Twilight overhears in a conversation between Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and Maya Mare that there's a lot of organisational issues with the event, so Twilight offers to organise the event, and ultimately makes the whole thing go smoother, ending up with the unique title of All-Team Organiser. The lesson learned at the end of this episode is how everyone can find hidden talents if they're patient and diligent, and that with good teamwork and friendship, ponies can accomplish anything. So yeah, it's definitely not the most groundbreaking message, but it ain't bad or anything. Twilight's eventual role as all-team organizer kind of links to how she is the one of the main 6 who linked them all together in episode 2, and how the element of magic is in the centre of all the elements and all that. I might be reading into this too much actually. The episode is enjoyable to watch and see the many ways Twilight tries to fit in and inevitably go wrong. and it's satisfying when she finally gets the job she's good at. Overall, Winter Wrap Up minus the song is a very solid episode, and with the song, it only gets better. Winter Wrap Up is going to go in the number 3 spot, above Friendship is Magic Part 1, but below Part 2. Call of the Cutie is the Cutie Mark Crusaders origin episode, although it basically only follows Applebloom. The story is not a very complicated one. Applebloom is sad that she doesn't have a cutie mark and gets bullied by Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara about it. So she goes to a bunch of ponies for advice and does all kinds of things to try and get her cutie mark. For instance, Ultra Pony Roller Derby with Rainbow Dash, cupcake eating with Pinkie Pie, and even asking Twilight to give her a cutie mark by magic, but none of this is successful. She ends up accidentally going to Diamond Tiara's cute Seniera, the celebration a filly or foal has once they get their cutie mark. She ends up getting made fun of again by Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara, but this time Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, 2 other fillies with blank flanks, come out to defend her, and they end up deciding to form the Cutie Mark Crusaders, a secret society for acquiring their cutie marks. And the friendship lesson at the end of this one is how the things which cause you to feel left out may end up helping you find your closest friends and recognise what makes you special. Overall, as an introduction episode, this one in my opinion isn't the greatest, as we don't really learn much about Scootaloo or Sweetie Belle. However, as an Applebloom standalone episode, this one is really good, as we get our first proper look at her character. You could argue we did in Bridle Gossip, but I'd have to say that we get a much more in-depth look here. Me personally, I didn't enjoy this episode nearly as much as the other Cutie Mark Crusader episodes this season. Not that this one was bad, because pretty much every episode in Season 1 is some level good, but there are better Cutie Mark Crusader episodes. I'm going to be putting Call of the Cutie in 12th place, below the Ticketmaster, which for now, yes, is last place, but don't worry. Those who enjoyed this episode, we're only on episode 12 out of 222. Full Weather Friends, as someone who likes Applejack and especially Rainbow Dash, is a great episode. Its story basically centers around how Applejack and Rainbow Dash both want to be better than one another and compete in an Iron Pony competition and a race in the running of the leaves to try and prove one of them is better than the other. Honestly, one of the standouts out of this episode for me is the conversation at the start line between Twilight and Dashie and AJ.
What'd you read? The Egghead's Guide to Running? Did you stretch out your eye muscles to warm up?
It just comes off as very natural and the kind of jokes I'd make about a friend in the same position. Ultimately, neither Applejack or Rainbow Dash win the race, as they both get so caught up in their 1v1 that they completely ignored the actual race and ended up tying for last place, with Twilight, whom they made fun of at the start, taking home the #1 medal. Full Weather Friends is a really fun episode to watch, to see the competitive dynamic between Applejack and Rainbow Dash and all the crazy stuff they do to try and sabotage each other in the running of the leaves. It's especially fun if, as is my case, they're 2 characters that you specifically like in the show. With probably some considerable bias, I'm going to be placing Full Weather Friends in the number 2 spot, above Friendship is Magic Part 2, but below Dragonshy. Suited for Success is another episode that's mainly known for a song, this time being Art of the Dress, sung by Rarity. And that song has possibly the most famous meme in the entire show, being
It needs to be about 20% cooler.
So yeah, this one's quite a well-known episode and is generally well regarded. The story is actually a callback to Ticketmaster, as Rarity basically spruces up all the main 6's dresses for the Grand Galloping Gala, which is what takes place during the song Art of the Dress. Rarity starts off on her own just making a dress to suit the style of each pony, but after she reveals them to every pony, they all want little things changed with their dress, and in the end, while it may have been exactly what they wanted, they kind of look terrible and ended up making Rarity look bad in front of Hoity Toity, a famous cult in fashion. Her friends feel bad that they unwillingly caused Rarity to look bad in front of Hoity Toity, so end up convincing him to come back and give Rarity a second chance, this time without all the other ponies and using Rarity's original design. As expected, without all of the additions the main 6 made, Hoity Toity ends up really liking Rarity's work and even asks if he can feature the dresses in his boutique in Canterlot. Of course, the lesson learnt at the end of this is simple. It's basically just don't be critical of something given out of generosity. A very good message for a very good episode. It's a simple story, but I think that just adds to how good this episode is to watch. Quite the opposite of Dragonshy, it manages to make 20 minutes feel very quick, which, like Dragonshy, isn't a bad thing, as it makes the episode just basically a great song and 2 fashion shows. It's a nice easy episode to watch and doesn't feel like quite the adventure Dragonshy is. I'm going to put Suited for Success at the number 5 spot, above Friendship is Magic Part 1, but below Winter Wrap Up. Feeling Pinkie Keen is a great Pinkie episode that features around how Pinkie Pie has a Pinkie sense, somewhat akin to Spider-Man's Spidey sense, except with Pinkie Pie it's really specific. And each specific eventuality has a different tell, like when her tail switches it means ponies should watch out for falling objects. Twilight, being a pony who doesn't believe in unexplainable supernatural stuff, instantly doubts Pinkie's sense and assumes it's all just coincidences. But the further on we get into the episode, no matter how many tests Twilight runs, she can't seem to prove whether Pinkie's sense exists or doesn't. While Pinkie goes around continuing to accurately predict things that are about to happen. The whole episode climaxes when Pinkie announces a doozy is going to take place at Froggy Bottom Bog, and that Fluttershy could be in danger as it was shown earlier in the episode that she was moving some frogs to the bog. When they arrive it seems as nothing is wrong, and Twilight immediately gloats about Pinkie's sense being inaccurate, when a giant hydra rises up out of the bog and chases to Main 6. Twilight ends up getting stuck on a stone pillar with a gap too big to jump, but Pinkie encourages her to take a leap of faith while twitching, showing that Pinkie's sense is telling her that Twilight will be safe. Twilight does and almost doesn't make it, but a bubble at the bottom of the gorge bounces her back up. Having cleared the danger, they all calm down until Pinkie starts twitching again, saying the doozy still hasn't happened yet, which causes Twilight to basically explode.
Dunno, but it just wasn't it.
Before giving up and admitting that Pinkie's sense is real. To which Pinkie stops twitching, coming to the conclusion that the doozy was Twilight believing in Pinkie's sense. This episode is a fun one, as most Pinkie episodes are, which proves, as always, how Pinkie is literally built different. I gotta say, the standout has to be Flaming Crash Out Twilight though. Feeling Pinkie Keen is gonna go in the 8th spot above Swarm of the Century but below Applebuck season. Sonic Rainboom is where you'll probably find the most personal bias from me, as Rainbow Dash is my favourite pony, and Sonic Rainboom is my favourite episode. I don't know if that means it will be at the top spot at the end of all these rankings, you'll have to wait all the way till the end, or just skip ahead I guess. Sonic Rainboom follows Rainbow Dash as she's getting ready for the Best Young Flyers competition. She wants to win it and impress the Wonderbolts, with the hopes of them accepting her as their newest member. The standout move in her flying routine is a stunt called the Sonic Rainboom, that is a deemed impossible stunt that Dashie did once as a filly and hasn't done since, but knows if she does do it, she'll definitely get the attention of the Wonderbolts. Her friends want to support her, but only Pegasi can walk in clouds, so Twilight does a spell on Rarity that gives her massive butterfly wings. However, the spell is too hard than training to do on all 4 of them, so she just does a spell that lets them walk in clouds that she found afterwards. During a tour Rainbow Dash gives of the factory, someone recommends that Rarity competes in the competition and she decides to, putting Rainbow Dash's nerves in an even worse state. When it comes to the time of the actual competition, Dashie is so nervous that she swaps her numbers with all the other ponies until there's so little time left that her and Rarity have to go out at the same time. Due to her nerves, Dashie messes up pretty much her whole routine until the point where Rarity flies up to silhouette herself against the sun and her wings burn off, causing her to plummet down towards the ground. The Wonderbolts try to save her, but she flails around so much she knocks all of them out mid-dive. Dashie notices Rarity falling and dives down, flying so fast that she creates a Sonic Rainboom. At the same time, saving Rarity and the Wonderbolts. Naturally, she wins the competition after that and is carried away in the arms of the Wonderbolts. Yeah, while many people will say, and even I can objectively admit this isn't the best episode out there, it's still my favourite. One of the contributing factors of this is that so much happens within 20 minutes, but it never feels rushed. Also, the Sonic Rainboom scene is awesome, you have to admit. Taking all that, and my personal bias into account, Sonic Rainboom will be going in the number 1 spot above Dragonshy. However, I'm not saying that a different episode couldn't take its number 1 spot away in the future. Stairmaster is our second Cutie Mark Crusaders episode and is the first where we actually see them together and have a proper feel for their dynamic. The story is Applebloom, Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle are planning on having a sleepover at Rarity's house. For those who don't know, Rarity is Sweetie Belle's sister. But Rarity can't manage to host a sleepover after Sweetie Belle uses up her supply of silk and she has to get more. Fluttershy happens to be at the boutique at the same time and offers to host a sleepover at her cottage instead. Knowing Fluttershy, you can expect how well this goes. Eventually Fluttershy stops hearing noises from their room and is naturally suspicious, and when she goes up and checks on them she learns they aren't there, and she also notices her chicken, Elizabeth, is gone. She finds them in the Everfree Forest and tells them that a cockatrice is on the loose, which has the powers of Medusa, turning you to stone if you look at it. Earlier, Fluttershy came across Twilight, who'd already been turned to stone by the cockatrice. And when it confronted Fluttershy and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, she decided to stand up to it and counter it with her own stare, which is her harshest punishment, and any animal that is confronted by it immediately becomes obedient. And it actually beats the cockatrice, and Fluttershy demands that it unfreezes Twilight and Elizabeth. After this, the Cutie Mark Crusaders decide to give Fluttershy the title of Stairmaster. This episode is pretty good. Definitely much better development of the Cutie Mark Crusaders characters than in their last episode, and this isn't even a dedicated Cutie Mark Crusaders episode. This episode also introduces a core recurring ability of Fluttershy, the stare. Overall, I enjoyed this episode quite a lot, but it isn't the best one we've had so far, so I'm going to place it in 13th place, above Look Before You Sleep, but below Bridle Gossip. Alright, 2 Cutie Mark Crusader episodes in a row. Kinda. I don't know if the last one is categorised as a Cutie Mark Crusaders episode, but anyway. Showstoppers is an episode that I really like, and always have. The episode introduces the CMC's clubhouse, which was Applejack's old clubhouse. From the clubhouse, the Cutie Mark Crusaders go all over Ponyville, trying different things to try and get their cutie marks, but it's no avail. Their teacher, Cheerily, suggests they enter the Ponyville School Talent Show, which they decide as a group to do a musical act, with Scootaloo singing a rock ballad, Sweet Belle doing the costumes, and Applebuck using her knowledge of Kung Fu to do the choreography. After Applejack listens to their practice in a loss for words, they assume it's because they were so good. Come when they actually perform the song, multiple things go wrong, and by the end they literally have to crawl out of the rubble of their backdrops, to the laughter of all the audience. They're really disappointed with how their performance went, until they get announced as the winner of the best comedy act, and they're really happy until they realise that they haven't got their cutie marks. And at the end, they admit the error is not embracing their strengths, but end up concluding that their true talent is comedy. I really like the actual performance section of this episode. Although the song is bad and it's supposed to be out of tune, it's really memorable, at least for me. I find myself absent-mindedly humming it sometimes, and the sequence where they try a bunch of stuff to try and find their talent is also fun to watch. With that said, I'm going to be placing the Showstoppers in 7th place, above Friendship's Magic Part 1, but below Suit for Success. A Dog and Pony Show. Not my favourite in Season 1. Kind of forgot about it, to be honest. But the story is, Rarity needs to find some new gems for Sapphire Shores, and Spike helps her. While they're looking for gems, Rarity gets kidnapped by some diamond dogs. I haven't mentioned it yet because it hasn't plot relevant, but Spike has a crush on Rarity, so he gets very upset when she gets kidnapped and runs to the main 6 quickly for help, and they all head back to the place where Rarity was kidnapped, but one by one, they all get pulled down holes into the ground by the dogs until they're all deep underground in tunnels dug by the diamond dogs. They imagine that Rarity is stuck in a cell, a damsel in distress, but in reality, she basically takes control of the diamond dogs by whining about everything and making them annoyed. Spike envisions himself as a brave knight riding into danger to save Rarity on Twilight's back, but when they eventually find Rarity, they find the diamond dogs pleading for them to take Rarity back, as they are tired of dealing with her, along with the 2 minecarts full of gems. The lesson learned at the end of this episode is just because someone is ladylike doesn't mean they're weak, and a seemingly defenseless individual can outsmart and outshine others. This episode is okay, but definitely not my favourite in Season 1, and at least for me, it isn't that memorable. When I'm rewatching the series and get to this episode, I'm kind of like, oh, this one, because I'm just not the biggest fan. And it's not because I don't like Rarity, I do, she's one of my favourite ponies. But yeah, for me, A Dog and Pony Show is going to be the new worst one at number 19, below Call of the Cutie. Green Isn't Your Colour is another nice episode. And its story is basically, Rarity asks Fluttershy to model some dresses for her as a famous photographer, Photo Finish, is in town, and Rarity wants to impress her with her new dress collection. Photo Finish is impressed, but not with Rarity's dresses, with how Fluttershy poses, since she's shy and hides from the camera, and everyone seems to like this. Photo Finish brings Fluttershy with her to make her famous, and wherever they go, people love Fluttershy's pose style. However, Fluttershy doesn't enjoy being stared at by so many people, and only carries on doing it because she thinks Rarity wants her to go. And Rarity only says she wants Fluttershy to carry on because she thinks Fluttershy wants to do it. They both wish that Fluttershy hadn't gotten this famous, and they eventually reveal how they feel about it to each other and realise that they both don't want it, so Fluttershy quits and walks out on Photo Finish. There's a funny subplot between Pinkie and Twilight where both Fluttershy and Rarity reveal their true feelings and ask her to promise not to tell other ponies, and Pinkie enforces this promise on Twilight. Every time she's about to blab the secret, Pinkie teleports out of nowhere to shut her up and says telling another pony is a way to
Lose a friend forever. But forever!
Overall, I enjoy this episode quite a lot. It isn't the best, but it's still a fun time, and we get the introduction of Pinkie Promises. I'm going to be placing Green Isn't Your Colour in 13th place, above Bridle Gossip, but below Griffon the Brush Off. Over a Barrel is another controversial episode that covers the topic of colonization, as the main six travel to Appaloosa to gift Applejack's relatives a tree. But it turns out that the apple orchard where they're going to plant the tree is taking up the buffalo's stampeding ground, so the buffalo and ponies of Appaloosa don't like each other. The main six tried to come to a fair point in the middle between both parties, but neither wanted to give up the land, with Applejack siding with her relatives in Appaloosa, Rainbow Dash siding with the buffaloes. Pinkie tries to get the point across by singing a song about sharing and caring. Neither side is impressed by this, and the buffalo announce that if the apple trees aren't moved by noon the next day, they'll stampede through the town. Come noon the next day, the buffalo look over the town, and Chief Thunderhooves hesitates, until he hears Pinkie's song again.
He's not gonna do it.
Say, you gotta share, you gotta care. It's the right thing to do. You gotta share. You gotta care.
And then the buffaloes come through the town, leading to an all-out rumble between the ponies of Appaloosa and the buffalo. The ponies using apple pies to throw at the buffalo. The chief gets struck in the head with a pie, and everyone assumes the worst until he tastes the pie and is surprised by its good taste and decides that they could perhaps come to an agreement. The ponies end up building a path through the orchard so that the buffalo can still stampede, and the ponies can still make all their apple-related goods. The lesson at the end of this episode being how even the worst enemies can become friends through understanding and compromise. So of course, in this episode, the ponies in Appaloosa are representing the colonizers of North America, and the buffalo are representing the Native Americans, which is naturally, as with the racism example in Bridle Gossip, gonna cause some controversy as they have to dumb down the ideas of colonization for kids to understand the message easily. While I see how this episode could be offensive, the way I see it, it isn't teaching the wrong message, and is a decently fun episode, especially the part where Pinkie Pie causes a stampede with how much the buffalo hate a song. I'm gonna put Over a Barrel in 16th place, above Look Before You Sleep, but below Stairmaster. A Bird in the Hoof is an episode that follows quite an old trope. The story is, Princess Celestia is visiting Ponyville and brings her bird Philomena, who Fluttershy understandably believes is sick, as she looks pretty awful. Fluttershy manages to sneak Philomena away back to her cottage and try to treat her, but nothing she tries works. Twilight discovers what Fluttershy has done and tries to help her cure Philomena, but it just ends up with the bird escaping into Ponyville. Fluttershy and Twilight chase Philomena all around town until eventually she stops on top of a mountain and her last feather falls. She then bursts into flames and her ashes land in Fluttershy's hands. Princess Celestia appears and tells Philomena to stop fooling around, whereupon she transforms from a pile of ash into a sleek and colourful bird. Celestia reveals that Philomena is a phoenix, who looked bad due to her being near the end of her cycle of renewal. This is, as I mentioned at the start, a bit of a classic trope. In lots of kids' media they have unexpected phoenix stories, and when I first watched this episode I figured out how it was going to end when Philomena fumigates. That's why anyone with knowledge about phoenixes would understand what's happening. It being a trope doesn't mean this episode is awful or anything, but it also isn't the greatest, so I'm going to be putting A Bird in the Hoof in the 16th place, above Over a Barrel but below the Stairmaster. The Cutie Mark Chronicles is definitely the best Cutie Mark Crusaders episode this season. It follows the Crusaders as they want to go to Rainbow Dash to ask her how she got her Cutie Mark, but on the way they run into every other member of the main six and end up learning how they got their Cutie Marks as well. Applejack was living in the city and wishing she was back at Sweet Apple Acres, and then saw a massive rainbow in the sky in Ponyville's direction and took that as a sign that she should move back, getting her Apple Cutie Mark. Fluttershy was being bullied by some Pegasi until Rainbow Dash showed up and challenged them to a race, but as the race started, Fluttershy was knocked down to the ground and discovered all the wonders of plants and animals that lived on the ground. A loud explosion caused the animals to become frightened, but Fluttershy communicates with them and tells them to calm down, getting her Butterfly Cutie Mark. Rarity was tasked with making costumes for her school play and she wasn't doing well, until her horn led her to a big rock in the middle of nowhere. She's unimpressed with it until, again, a loud explosion and a burst of light causes the rock to split open, revealing all the different colours of crystals inside, getting her Gem Cutie Mark. Twilight was struggling to pass the entrance exam for Celestia's school for gifted unicorns and couldn't crack an egg until, as with the rest of these, the sound and light from a distant explosion causes her horn to imbue with magic and crack the egg, revealing Spike to be inside, so there's his origin which I talked about ages ago. Twilight begins randomly casting magic everywhere when Celestia comes in, sorting the magic outburst out and remarking that she'd never seen a unicorn with such raw power before, and requests Twilight become her personal protege, getting her Magic Cutie Mark. Pinkie Pie was living a miserable cloudy life with her family, until, you probably expect what's going to happen, a loud rainbow shockwave breaks apart the clouds, causing the sun to shine on Pinkie, and she's overcome with such joy that she decides to hold a party for her family, which they reluctantly join but find themselves enjoying it. Pinkie then gets her balloon Cutie Mark. All this was leading up to them finding Rainbow Dash, and when they do, they find out that she got her cutie mark after performing her first Sonic Rainboom, which the main six then realised is the reason they all got their cutie marks and met in the first place, and that they were all linked before they even knew it. This episode is a great one. It lets us learn even more about the main six, but from the Cutie Mark Crusaders' perspective. It's also very interesting seeing how all the main six got their cutie marks, as it's something we wonder from when we first learn about how ponies get cutie marks. I'm going to be putting the Cutie Mark Chronicles in 3rd place, above Four Weather Friends but below Dragonshy. Owl's World That Ends Well is our first proper Spike episode, so it's unfortunate that it isn't the best. The story goes, Spike is proud that he is titled Twilight's #1 assistant, until an owl called Owlowiscious appears, and in Spike's eyes he replaces him as Twilight's assistant, and Spike grows jealous and does increasingly extreme things to try and make Owlowiscious look bad, but in reality they just make him look worse. Spike tries to set up a fake dead mouse to blame on the owl, but Twilight catches him in the act and reprimands him. Spike misinterprets this and thinks Twilight doesn't want him around anymore, and runs away to the Everfree Forest. He finds a cave with many gems in it. Spike eats these gems, and after he does, a large green dragon confronts him about it. Just as it looks like it's all over for Spike, Owlowiscious flies in, creating a distraction long enough for Spike to get out. Once they're out, Spike apologizes to Owlowiscious and Twilight for his jealous behavior, and Twilight tells Spike that no one could replace him as her #1 assistant, so it's a happy ending. Now, honestly, Spike kinda comes off as unlikable here. We know he's not supposed to do some of the stuff he's doing, so in a way we're kind of rooting against him during the whole thing. I mean, at least this episode introduces Twilight's pet owl, so that's something. Overall, yeah, it's not my favourite episode and will be going in 23rd place, above A Dog and Pony Show, but below Call of the Cutie. Party of One is an episode famous for first putting the idea in people's head that when Pinkie's hair falls, it means she's insane, which is what happens in all those Pinkie Pie creepypastas. The episode focuses around how Pinkie invites all her friends to Gummy, her pet alligator's, birthday party. They all go and have a great time, but the day after, when Pinkie invites them to Gummy's after birthday party, they all make excuses why they can't go, and Pinkie gets suspicious when she sees all of them acting weird and sneaking around town, and eventually comes to the conclusion that they don't like her parties. She ends up having a whole mental breakdown thing, and has a party with a bunch of inanimate objects, which is when Rainbow Dash invites her to Sweet Apple Acres, where it's revealed that they all were sneaky because they were actually getting a surprise birthday party ready for Pinkie, which is when she remembers that it is her birthday and returns to her normal self. Overall, this episode is a pretty good Pinkie one that dives more into her character and how she reacts when her friends seemingly forget or don't like her. I'm going to be placing Party of One in 13th place, above Griffon the Brush Off but below Storm of the Century. The Best Night Ever is a great episode to end on that has quite a few funny bits. It's the continuation of the Ticketmaster and Suited for Success story, as our main six ponies finally end up at the gala and are excited to achieve all their dreams. But it doesn't go exactly how they'd imagine, and things go very wrong very fast. After none of their goals are really working, Dashy's voice is getting drowned out when talking to the Wonderbolts, Celestia is too busy to talk to Twilight properly, Prince Bluebird isn't interested at all in Rarity, no one likes Pinkie's dance, the animals run away from Fluttershy, and Applejack barely makes any sales. They decide they have to make this the best night ever, and try increasingly extreme things to make their dreams come a bit more to life. The highlight of which being Fluttershy going crazy setting up traps for the animals in the garden, clearly having some trouble connecting with them, acting very un-Fluttershy-like. All this ultimately ends up with a massive domino effect in the main ballroom, in which all the main six collide with each other, causing chaos everywhere. After everyone calms down a bit, they apologise profusely to Princess Celestia, but she says this is the most fun she's had at the gala in years, and it's normally boring with nothing happening, and was hoping that inviting Twilight and her friends would liven it up a bit. Overall, this is a great episode, and a great finale. Despite it not being a two-parter like most other finales are, it subverts our expectations. We expect everything to at least turn right out in the end, but no, it just keeps getting worse and worse, culminating in a massive disaster. I'm going to be placing The Best Night Ever in 4th place, above Four Other Friends but below Cutie Mark Chronicles. Alright, well, that's season 1 done. It only took a few days of no sleep. Here are the final standings. I'd really appreciate if you enjoyed this, that you like, and if you haven't already, subscribe, because this took an age to do, seriously. This is quite a project I've started, and I'm going to try and pace myself with the next one. I'll still get another video out next weekend, just not part 2 of this because I don't want to spend like 4 days on a video that should have taken 2 weeks. But hey, even if it ain't my usual upload date, it's still less than a week since my last video, so I'll take that as a win. And on that note, thanks for watching, I've been Monodash, and I'll see you sometime soon.
I would love a daffodil and daisy sandwich.